I'll be done in about 10 minutes here, so we'll have more time for questions. But these are the general food groups, not the right term, it's general real estate sectors that are out there: apartment, hotel, industrial, office, and retail. But of the two Apex is most interested in, I would think it'd be industrial and retail, because they have the most, the highest probability of having remediation that needs to be addressed. So we're only going to talk about those two in the limited time we have here. And when I say talk about, I'm just going to talk about what the true real estate experts are saying the impact of COVID-19 are going to be on these two sectors. So we'll start with industrial. Obviously, industrial has a lot of opportunity for remediation when a transaction happens. Or maybe an industrial site has an owner who is a bit recalcitrant and is just fed up with agency directives to clean, and maybe with COVID, they're thinking that their opportunity to retain the site is not going to be as attractive. So there are some possible rent reductions that could be taking place in the next, as you see here, 7 or 8 quarters or so. But I'm going to do what I don't normally do. I'm going to read what people who know a lot more than I do have stated. And this is CBRE's Economic Advisors Group. CBRE, probably the most prestigious commercial industrial broker out there. I don't know if Fred Ephraimian joined us, but he'd like to hear that. Fred helped me broker the deal in Hollywood. And so I have access to a lot of their research, and I found this slide to be very eye-opening. So as the title states, the downturn in industrial is expected to be relatively mild. The baseline forecasts call for a mild downturn in rents and a rapid recovery relative to other recessions. It's good news. The recovery is partially driven by the type of recession, but also by strong industrial fundamentals at the start of 2020. By type of recession, what they're referring to, the fact is it's basically man-made. The government said shut down. That's not how past recessions have worked. So the downturn should be buffered by a surge in e-commerce demand. I think we're all ordering a lot more Amazon these days. I know I am. And so rents are expected to regain their previous peak by Q3 2021. A strong growth trajectory should occur after recovery. Now that's easy to say, but if you're a property owner who is seeing the fluctuation in what's happening in a pandemic marketplace, or maybe you have a tenant who's getting skittish, not all tenants are rational. So in my mind, there are still going to be transactions happening in the industrial marketplace, more so than I think you will have seen in 2019. And although it's dipping from, they're calling this index value of 1 to only say a 0.97, that's not a big jump, but it's still skittishness that CBRE thinks is going to last for a year and a half. So just something to keep in mind, that your industrial clients may be looking to transact, and they'll need help from a wonderful environmental consultancies such as Apex. So no one's seeing a lot of drama here, but having said that, there is going to be a shift. Maybe the heavy industrial is going to sell to warehouse, and so that's going to may take some remediation. And by the way, I'm happy to make all these slides available. So let's go to something that's going to be a little more dramatic in the next 3 years. So this is CBRE's retail market forecast. Just to cut to the chase, strip malls are going to have big problems. There's going to be a lot of changing hands here. And I was not familiar with the term NCNS. If anybody knows what NCS is, I congratulate you. But what it stands for is neighborhood, community, and strip centers. So strip malls, basically. And let's go over terms really quickly. We're going to be on this slide for a little bit. So completions on the bottom of million square feet, that's just completing construction. Net absorption rate. Let me give you the textbook definition of net absorption rate, because that's pretty important. Net absorption rate is the sum of square feet physically occupied minus the sum of square feet becoming vacant. So if Apex leaves a 150,000 square foot facility and moves into a 225,000 square foot facility, the net absorption rate, it would be 75,000 square feet. So what the experts are saying is that the net absorption, look at this madness, is going to go down to minus 30 million square feet for 3 quarters. That's pretty daunting. I mean, you look at this chart for 2000, we've not seen anything like that. And then the orange line is the availability rate. So that's actually a nice summary. So from 2019, the availability rate is beneath 10%. It's going to jump up 2.5% in Q1 2021. So that tells me opportunities within a couple quarters. And then rent reaches its bottom in Q2 2021. Another tidbit that I've read is that, and I don't have the exact statistic, but I've read the following in a few different places, that the US has an extremely high NCANS square foot per capita. So we just have too many strip malls per capita, especially when everything's going online. So the strip malls and similar entities were having some challenges even before COVID hit. So bottom line, there's going to be a lot more availability, rents are going to come down, and there are going to be owners relatively eager to sell. So quick example, yesterday or 2 days ago, I got a call from a broker who had seen one of my LinkedIn ads in the Bay Area in Northern California outside of San Francisco. It's a 125,000 square foot mall. They only have 50% occupancy now, 50, and that's dipping because they don't have any major names. And they've tried to sell twice pre-COVID, and they've dropped out of escrow on 2 different occasions. And it's just a family that received this site. I call a dry cleaner release. I call these kinds of sites, and others do, toxic succession, whereby the adult children get the property when someone passes, and they're saying, what the hell do I do with a contaminated site? So that's what's happened here. And even pre-COVID, they're having some challenges. Now they need an expert to come in. They can do a few things. They can bring in a mall expert and discuss what's going to be the best use, or they can transform it to multifamily residential. The trick with that site, though, is that there is an easement, and an easement is going to restrict multifamily residential development. So, but then just continuing on with this very brief story, that easement ends in 5 years. So our thinking, as we're about to put an offer on this site, is we are going to expertly manage this mall for 3-4 years, and on a parallel path, run the entitlements to build about 300 multifamily residential units. We'll team up with a developer. We won't actually do that. But we'll be like the interim folks holding title while all this is going on. Many developers don't like to hold title, which is why they call on us. But that's a perfect example of an opportunity for a firm like Apex. I think I mentioned it ends in 5 years, excuse me. So it's a perfect opportunity, the easement ends in 5 years. So there's a perfect opportunity for accelerated remediation to prepare that site for multifamily residential. So this does apply in certain sectors, more phase 1s, more phase 2s, more folks wanting to transact. So what a lot of folks say is, Winefield, that's all very interesting, but how is the seller going to ensure that you're going to protect them? And that was actually Erin's first question yesterday when we were just going over this. Very astute question, but I had a slide ready for her. And so there are many ways we protect the seller. One of the most common ways to procure environmental insurance. We as the purchaser are usually more likely to be able to get insurance than the seller. And we can typically add the seller as an additional insured on the environmental pollution legal liability policy. There's a lot of nuances associated with this. Some of what we do is quasi-proprietary, so I really don't jump into a lot of those details until I'm actively negotiating a purchase and sale agreement. But we have gotten acquired sites where we were able to get insurance, but the seller was not. Some of that is knowing the right brokers. Some of it is knowing how to present environmental data, not hiding, just talking about different presentation. And some of that is just going directly, for example, to the underwriters of the insurance companies instead of depending on brokers. So that's very important. Number two, we have a good history of remediating sites and returning them to beneficial use. I've given you some case studies where you've seen how remediation is progressing. And the best way to protect the seller is to remediate the site and bring it to an NFA. That quells 90%, 95, 99% of the concerns. And the syndications we set up are financially secure. And so we have both remediation and development arms of our syndications who run these projects professionally. The indemnifications we provide are pretty solid, but I always tell people right off the bat, we don't do personal guarantees. We're not letting you bust the corporate veil and touch our other LLCs or holding companies. We provide special purpose entities, special purpose LLCs, and our indemnification goes to the limit of that LLC. Having said that, no one wants to lose their investment. We haven't. We've always had a nice return. And sometimes we'll include in the indemnification agreement the ability for the purchaser to claw back the property. So if we pay $3 million for a property and they have a clawback provision, I guarantee you we don't want to give up the site. Finally, we're very thorough in our underwriting and environmental due diligence. I can't tell you how many times I've seen investors of commercial industrial sites close based on a phase one only. That just, I've been flabbergasted by that. How many times I've seen that both as a consultant and investor. It just makes no sense. So we're always doing phase twos. We're always analyzing the data. We're doing groundwater monitoring. We bought a site in Whittier, California, again outside of LA, and it abuts a Superfund plume. And we spent a fair amount of money doing some hydrogeologic modeling to say, do we think we can convince EPA through hydrogeologic modeling that we're not a source of the Superfund plume? We have our own independent source removed from so our consultants said, yeah, you can probably make that argument. So just an idea of how we do due diligence a little differently. And I know we're busy and I promised less than 30 minutes, so I'm going to wrap up. So COVID-19 will create unique real estate transactional opportunities. I showed you a couple slides. I'm sure you're reading from other sources how these opportunities may come about. Maybe you've seen it. I'd love to hear what's going on your end. Secondly, I'd like you to take away with the fact that we spend a great deal of our efforts to protect the sellers and bring sites to an NFA. And then finally, we do accelerate remediation pacing and increase environmental consultants revenue. We've had numerous instances whereby the seller of the property has been ignoring consultant proposals for a few years and finally said, all right, I'm out of here, buy it from me. And then we will start cleaning up. So that's us in a nutshell. That's what I think the opportunities are as a result of COVID and the, how should we say, SAR, site assessment remediation marketplace. Happy to answer some questions and kibitz with the crowd a bit.